My name is Aiden Hensley. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the most influential figures in Kentucky's history. Though he was not originally from Kentucky, he actually did a lot of notable things for Kentucky and for the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the audience, the person I'm discussing today is Henry Clay. Henry Clay was born in Hanover County, Virginia in 1777. After his birth, his father died 4 years later, and Clay had to be one of the members of the house. So, he only received 4 years of public school. Even though this is true, Clay maintained being a very intelligent person and was very charismatic. In 1797, Clay moved to Lexington, Kentucky to study law. Even though he found that he loved law, he wasn't satisfied. So, he moved to the political scape. And in 1803, Clay became a U.S. congressman. Clay was well known as one of the great compromisers in the United States history. One of the first notable things he did was the Missouri Compromise. Prior to the Civil War, there were slave states and there were free states. And balancing those amount of states was very hard for Clay and for the other congressmen and government members at the time. So, Clay came up with the idea that Missouri would become a free state, and Maine would become a free state, and Missouri would become a slave state. Including this, that on the 3630 parallel line would divide the United States. Below that line was states like Kentucky, Tennessee, and Texas would become slave states. Those states above the 3630 parallel would become free states. Following this, in 1811, Clay would be elected to the Speaker of the House. Clay then would be known as a war hawk. What the war hawks were known for was advocating for war with Great Britain. So, in 1812, the United States re-engaged in a war with Great Britain. Though this was true, it was actually paid off for the United States in a lot of ways. Clay ran for president a total of 3 times. The first time, he ran against President Andrew Jackson. Though Andrew Jackson won in a landslide, it's still very notable that Clay ran against him. He then ran again in 1832 and 1844. After this, around 1850, problems were coming about again between slave states and free states. This time, the United States was in a war with Mexico, and the United States won that war. The problem came about when Mexico seceded its territories to how the number of slave states and free states would add up with these new territories. Clay came up with the idea that the state of California, one of the biggest state, or the biggest state other than Alaska in the United States today, would be a free state and would go up to help the Union. Also, in the District of Columbia, the slave trade would be officially abolished. Though the slave trade was abolished in other states, D.C. was not a state, but it was abolished, and all other Mexico territories would be considered slave states, or those states had the ability to vote for whether they would be a slave state or a free state. 2 years later, Clay would pass away in Washington, D.C. to tuberculosis. Clay would not get another chance to run for president, so we never would really know how he did. But we do know that Clay really tried to help the United States and smooth things out. And though things didn't go as planned, later on and the Civil War started, Clay was a very influential man in the United States history. Thank you.